Good day, flight simmers. Today I'm going to try a flight using the Textron Aviation Beechcraft King Air 350i. I like this aircraft because the flight management system's pretty reliable in this aircraft in Microsoft Flight Sim. And this aircraft is sort of an executive type turboprop, as competition is the smaller executive jets in Microsoft Flight Sim. And also this plane runs around $8 million, which is new, which is about the same price as those jets. So I also want to take a look at building a flight plan where the weather is rather intense, just to see how Microsoft does. So here we are in the United States, and I'm going to try a flight in this area right here. See if we can build a flight plan and fly into Evansville and see how the weather is when we get there, to see how Microsoft is interpreting real-time real weather. So this is real-time. This is almost 9 a.m. on the 15th of July 2023. So that's what the weather looks like. Let's take a look at little nav map to see if we can build a flight plan. So let's try and fly from Louisville for a departure, and I'll pick a gate, and I'm going to hold the mouse over there and see the preferred runway. Preferred runway, if you look at NOAA station MEDAR information, it'll give you the wind, which is out of 110 at 4 knots, which isn't that intense really. But the preferred runway is runway 11. So I'm going to pick runway 11. And I'm going to pick a gate. So if they give me this, if they actually assign me that, I'll pick this gate, and it's fairly close. So I'll right click on that, and then it's starting to build a flight plan over here. Now I'm going to be able to pick a departure. So I'll pick the preferred runway, say okay. It's flying in the wrong direction for where we're headed, but that's okay. So that's the departure. Now let's scroll on over here to where the weather's really bad and zoom in on this airport right here. I'm going to turn on some stuff here, the waypoints, and I turned on the feather for ILS runways. So here's your two ILS approaches, or RNAV. So what I'm going to do is right click on there and see if I can see a preferred runway. So it says 27, 22, or 18. If you look at that once again under NOAA station MEDAR, and the wind is about 10 knots at 240. So the runway 27, 22, or 18. So let's have a look here. So I'm going to pick 22. Okay, so I'm going to select that as our arrival. Destination, there we go. Now 22, I can pick a runway. Say okay. Now I'm going to right click here and see if I can get some procedures. So I have this set arrival and approach, so you can change that. You can just do RNAV approaches. So really what I want is to do an RNAV approach, and if I click on this, I'll see that's runway 4, runway 18, runway 22, runway 36. So I'm going to pick this for an approach. Okay, so let's back off here and see what we got here. So there's our little flight plan that's created right now. You can see it built it here. Let's just make sure you have IFR on there, not VFR. 4,000 feet should be okay. I'm going to hit calculate and see if it adjusts the height, and it didn't. It left it at that. Like for example, if I had to put it there and said adjust, it would have adjusted it to an acceptable height. So I'm going to say calculate, and what it does there is calculates a flight plan for me using some waypoints. So I'm going to make sure we're connected to Microsoft Flight Sim. And now I'm going to hit save, and it's going to save it as Louisville to Evansville. And then I'm going to export it as a Microsoft flight plan. So I go right there, and once again it knows where to save it under my Microsoft Flight Sim folders for flight plans. Give it the same name. Okay, so I'm going to close this down now, and there's our flight plan. We can see how that worked out. Now we're going to go back to Microsoft Flight Sim. Okay, so click on this window here, and now I'm going to hit more, load, and I'm going to hit load from this PC, and there's the flight plan right there. So let's see what the weather looks like. So this is a 34-minute flight. I didn't want anything too long. Now you can see it did give us RNAV 22, and it gave us a departure runway of 17 left. Let's have a look here. Little nav map here. I'm just going to click on little nav map so we can see it. Now we asked for runway 11, so it picked 17. Don't know why, but anyway, I'm going to leave it at what they picked. So I'll just downsize that again. So there's your weather. So real time, real weather. So I'm going to hit fly. So we're in the King Air, so I'm going to use the checklist provided by Microsoft Flight Sim. So I like to use the checklist because that's what they do in the real world. They use checklists. It's not really cheating. It's something that's provided that normally would be done by the pilot and first officer or co-pilot. So here we are, overcast for sure. All right, let's take a look outside at our aircraft. Very nicely rendered by Microsoft Flight Sim. We got some people in the way here, of course, and I really don't want to do a pushback. If you press Shift P, you'll get a pushback. I'll show you that. Now you have to take the emergency brake off, or the parking brake I should say, which is right there, or else he's not going to be able to push you back. So let's go through the checklist here. I said I wasn't going to do a pushback, but I'm doing one anyway because they're in the way, and I hate really to run over these guys when I'm taking off. So let's do hit evaluation.
Parking brake.
Off. I'm not going to set it. It's going to want me to set it.
Set.
Yeah, so
Power levers.
now let me just take it
Idle.
off again because those guys won't
Prop
be able to.
RPM levers.
Okay, so prop RPM levers. You can hit autocomplete, or you can just put them all the way up yourself.
Max RPM. Condition levers.
Okay, fuel cutoff.
Fuel cutoff. Battery switch.
Battery switch, let's turn that on.
Clearance
Let's
delivery
see.
Nasser
Go outside and
616
see what the
IFR.
pushback's
Evansville
looking
ready
like.
to copy.
Nasser 616 is cleared to Evansville Airport as filed. Takeoff runway 17 left, climb and
Yeah, well that gets us away from these guys. So I'm going to hit Shift now, P to stop the pushback, and I'm going to put the parking brake back on so I don't
Nasser
start
616
rolling.
cleared to Evansville Airport
Now,
as filed.
back inside,
Takeoff runway 17 left,
and
climb
let's
maintain
go
4,000 feet.
starting engine.
Departure on 132.075
Now,
squawk 1171.
I'm going to take this off because it's going to be annoying. Okay. All right, let's let it run through.
On. Right ignition and engine start. Right ignition and engine start.
So it's going to do low idle when 12%. Okay, so you can auto-complete that just to speed
Low
things up.
idle when 12% N1 minute. ITT and N1.
Yeah, so you just give that tick mark when everything's okay. So I'm going to tick item.
Monitor. Right oil pressure. Check. Right ignition and engine start.
Okay. I'm just going to auto-complete that.
Off at 50% N1 or above. Right condition lever.
High idle. Okay, so auto-complete
High
that.
idle. Right generator. On. Left engine start.
Okay, so it's going to repeat the same procedure, so I'm auto-complete that. Get your co-pilot helping you out here. So you want to make sure you're on idle while you're sitting here and your parking brake is set, or you'll start rolling forward into the terminal. So I'm not going to force finish this. I'm just going to let it go. Let's go outside and see if everything's running and looking good and clear. Yes, we are. So we got a rainy day. All right, so after starting engine, I'm going to go back inside.
Avionics master switch. On. Lights.
Okay, so let's have a look at our lights here. Landing lights. Just leave them on for the entire flight. We're going to taxi. I'm going to put these on because they're asking for them. I don't know why they don't have nav on, but I'll put it on. It's not going to hurt. And tail.
On. Parking brake.
Okay, so now here's where we're going to release that parking brake.
Pause system test.
Release.
Okay, I just want to do something. I'm going to put the parking brake back on for a second before we taxi out. So that completes the checklist that they provide for this aircraft. Now some aircraft have extensive checklists from start to finish, even approach and shutting down, but this aircraft doesn't. Alright, so I'm going to close that. What I want to do is go inside the aircraft and take a look at a few things. First of all, I'm going to take these off because they're just warnings, and I'm going to zoom in here on this primary screen here, and we want to set that to GPS. So for a RNAV landing, it's not like an ILS landing. ILS is going to use the frequency of the runway, but an RNAV uses a GPS signal from the satellite to bring you in on a glide path rather than a glide slope. So you don't have to pick up a signal off the runway. So in really bad weather like this, or if there's an issue with the ILS system, the RNAV is going to work. Now the thing I like about a little nav map I'm going to show you is that here's our flight plan, and if you pick an RNAV runway like we did, you can hit the elevation, and you see right here it's telling you we have to be at 2,500 feet at Charlie Uniform Yankee Oscar radar, that waypoint right there. I'm not sure how you pronounce that, Gaia, but at any rate, that's important. We have to be at that elevation to pick up the glide path. If you're too high or too low, you're not going to pick it up. So that's the nice thing about little nav map. And if you go to let me just show you here for a second. If you go to SkyVector, you'll find out for the U.S. airports, they will give you RNAV maps. You'll find out that's an agreement. So I've done that and I've checked it. So let's just close that down. All right. So let's give this a try. Back into the plane. Close that down. And what I want to do is set the altitude to 4,000. So Control 2 brings up this. And if I back off a bit with my mouse, you're going to see the altitude go up here. So I'm going to show you the different dials and switches you're going to need in order to pull this off. So we're going to go to 4,000. And let's go back to Control 1. And there's your barometric pressure. I'm going to set that. See, it just changed. So now we're at the correct altitude. That's the altitude we're sitting at right now on the tarp here. Let's see. I think we've got pretty much everything else. Here's your airspeed ribbon, and here's your altitude. Now you're going to have information across here once you highlight different things, and we'll take a look at that. But like I said, you want to have it on GPS. Now the other thing I want to look at is the flight plan. So if I click split, let me just hit this and click split. Okay, so it's a touch screen, you can see. So if I hit flight plan, and if you were setting a frequency for the runway for an ILS, that's where you'd click to set your frequency. But I want to look at the active flight plan. Now, let's take a look at, let's scroll down here and see. So runway, there's a runway right there, 11. And this is a waypoint. And these are the waypoints we've been given here. And there's our elevations, okay? So we did an RNAV, so let's take a look at our approach here. See, 2,500 feet. Now let's take a look at RNAV there. Yeah, see, 2,500 feet. So everything's in agreement. Now let's just look at our waypoints here. Holland, well, we've got Saco, Holland, MK. So let's just see if we can look at that. Yeah, so it looks good. Looks like the flight plan has been entered nicely. Now let's go Control 3 over here. You can see because they've given us a different runway than we asked for, we've got this crazy kind of little loop thing going on here. Just going to back off. But what I have found is some of the aircraft in Microsoft Flight Sim, they get totally confused when this happens, and I would have to hit fly direct to this waypoint or this waypoint to get us back on track. But the King Air seems to be able to handle that quite nicely. So if I go back here, you can see you have the option to fly direct to if you highlight a waypoint, like right there. So we're not going to do that. Okay, I'm just going to go back here and go split again and map. Get back to the map. So anyway, let's see what happens when we take off. So I think we're pretty much good to go. Control 4 will give you this screen. Control 5. You've got your throttles, your propeller, and your engine conditioner. Also Control 6 will give you this. A lot of this is just inoperable stuff, but it's there for aesthetics and looks great. Control 7, you've got your fuel here to the left of the pilot, and you can arm this, the ELT. You got your temperature gauge, and these are inoperative. So let's go Control 8. Let's put on the wipers, because I think it's going to be raining. And then you've got lights. It's a little overcast and dark, so we can turn things up a bit. Yeah. And make sure I'll turn that on, the master panel lights. Okay, so Control 9 gets us back here. So we're ready to rock and roll. I'm going to contact ATC.
Louisville ground Nasser 616 with whiskey ready to taxi IFR.
Nasser 616 taxi to and hold short of runway 17 left via taxiway Bravo Foxtrot cross runway 11 Echo Kilo Hotel Lima. Contact tower on 124.2 when ready.
Now when I start
Taxi,
rolling
short
here,
runway 17
there's the
left
blue
using
markers
taxiway
that
Bravo
I have
Foxtrot
turned on
cross
to
runway
assist.
11 Echo Kilo Hotel Lima Nasser 616.
So I have to take off the parking brake again. Control delete. Or you can go inside, go down, and just hit it. So now you have to be ready to roll to steer so you don't run into somebody. Don't go too fast because this thing doesn't turn. Doesn't matter how hard you try. Seems to be somebody always standing in the way. So accident investigation right there. Let's start heading out. Okay, I'm just going to get behind here. What I'm going to do is bring up a little nav map so you can also see that you can follow your way around with a little nav map. I'm going to have to zoom in here, of course, and have it center. So I'm going to close this down because we've already checked that out. I just took that window off for the flight plan. So now we can see our aircraft and we can see where we're going. So I love that little nav map helps guide you around the airport if you don't have these blue markers on. You could actually follow their instructions because it gives you the alpha numbers for the taxiways. Like Alpha, Golf, Echo, Foxtrot. Yeah, that's excellent. So you can see the runway I picked for our flight plans over here. Now, I'm not going to take off from there because that wasn't the one that was assigned. I'm going to go with the runway they assigned us and see if the GPS system can still pick up the flight plan with this King Air. And if it does, kudos for the King Air for working really well on Microsoft Flight Sim. So we're heading out here to our assigned runway. Quite the convoluted little route we've got going here. It looks like I'm just going to take a shortcut this thing. Looks like they got me going around and back, so I'm just going to go across here. Request permission from ATC. Permission granted. Okay, here we are. So now I'm going to have to put some flaps down. I've got the co-pilot handling comms and changing the comm frequencies for us. You can do that in your settings. Okay, 2986. Let's have a look. Okay, it's 85. So I'm just going to hit B for Bravo. Just changed it. See that? That's very important to do before you land with an RNAV landing. So let's just pull forward here. We're cleared for takeoff. Let's see what happens. Okay, so we got some nasty weather here. We're gonna have poor visibility, so I'll keep my fingers crossed how this is gonna go. Okay, so right now I'm bringing it to a stop, and I am going to line up and put some flaps down. Okay, this thing's raring to go. So these engines are very powerful on this plane. So we're good to go. Now you got to be careful you don't get into overspeed as well. once you get in the air, because it will accelerate very quickly. Okay, just gently pull back on the yoke. Okay, so I can press G on the keyboard to bring up the landing gear, or you can do that inside the aircraft. Also, the flaps are controlled by my joystick, so I'll bring them up. Now, back inside, Control 2, and I am going to put on flight director, autopilot, yaw damper, nav, vertical speed, up.
Departure Nasser 616 is passing 1,400 feet,
so
climbing 4,000
we are
feet.
climbing at 700 feet per minute, so I can increase that a bit. Now, let's just see what this plane is doing. You see it's already following, apparently, the flight plan. So, Control 3, you see how it picked that up? Now let's just see if it turns here. Yeah, it is. So what I found is some of the other aircraft, if you take off on the wrong runway, it won't do this. It won't fly to your waypoints and start following a flight plan. You will have to fly direct to here or here to get it back on track, and then it'll be okay. But the King Air, it works beautifully. So all I really need to do is pay attention to my instruments in this bad weather and trust them, and also remember to put on approach. So I'll show you what I mean there. So when we get close to our approach for the runway for landing, I have to hit this button here, or it's not going to pick up the glide path. Now when we do that, we're going to see GP should show up in here, and it should start as white and then turn green, a green GP, which means we will have picked it up. So here are the things we're seeing showing up right now. We're on GPS, autopilot, yaw damper, vertical speed is in mode right now. That should change to altitude hold. Right now this is not on, hold, but this will come on and hold things. So we're flying right along the flight plan. So let's take a look at the weather. Okay, bad, nasty stuff. We should maybe even see some lightning on this flight. So it's not a really long flight. Now, because we calculated the flight, it might be with a calculation in little nav map, it might be a little longer. Now let's look at little nav map and see if we're following our flight plan in little nav map. So we are. Now sometimes what you'll find is Microsoft Flight Sim will insert its own little waypoints. For example, it might put this one in, and your aircraft will fly to that. But you can see that in your flight plan probably if it has done that. But if it's following this, it means it's everything loaded very nicely from little nav map. Now I'm going to show you some of the things I like about little nav map. I can turn on VOR stations. You can have your aircraft centered, which it's doing right now. You can have it show up. If you click that, it disappears. You click it, you see the aircraft's right here. Watch when I do that. Okay. You can also have AI aircraft show up, and actual, I think, real aircraft that are actually flying, like United, for example. You can have boats. If you have purchased some boats, you can have them show up. So anything that's blue is something I have highlighted. So I have the wind bars showing up, wind barbs, right there. So that helps show the direction of the wind. Now if you do hit this, you will see this little icon show up here, and that shows you that the wind is blowing in that direction, and this is a little short barb on it, so that means the wind's not too strong, basically. So you can turn that on and off. That'll help you pick which runway you want to take off from. But I usually go with the preferred runways because it's usually done that way because of the wind. So here's some information. There's a Delta flight, probably a real Delta flight, I suspect. Its ground speed is 315 and it's at 39,000 feet. So some of this stuff is generic and some of it, there's a Southwest flight. Some of it's actual real aircraft. So we're heading to Saco, and let's just downsize this. I'm going to go back inside the aircraft and see if everything is going fine. Now it doesn't hurt to check the barometric pressure whenever you feel like it. Leave on your keyboard once again, or you can adjust it with this knob right here. So I hit step B and it just changed once again. So that changes our altitude, and then the autopilot will automatically adjust to get us to 4,000 feet. So you can zoom in and out on this map, and you can drag it, which I really like. So you can zoom out and zoom in. Now watch your airspeed. Like I said, that's not bad. You don't want to get into 250 because you're going to get an overspeed warning. So I try to avoid that if at all possible. Now let's have a look. The weather looks good right now, but I think we're flying into some nasty stuff. We'll find out anyway. So the landscape and terrain is beautifully rendered by Microsoft and very accurate. And if you compare it to little nav map, like for example, you might not know the names of these little towns we're flying over, but with little nav map, you can get that information. Like Fogle Road Southeast. So that's what I really like about little nav map. There's that name of that quarry that we see down there. SR 135, we're flying over right now. See a little traffic on it. So it's really well done, really, really is. And what I like is I'm always curious, how accurate is the weather with what's really happening, and this is kind of proves it. So let's just take a look at that weather again. There it is. So we're flying this way, and we're flying here, so we should be going through some of this stuff. Well, let's just see if we're, well, right here you can see with this compass that we're following the GPS flight plan, because we're right in line. This magenta needle here is lined up with the arrows, and I have heads-up display turned on at the minimum level, so it doesn't take up too much of your window. You can enjoy the flight, but you can still see your airspeed, your engines, and your fuel, angle of attack, your flaps, trim, altitude, and vertical speed. So you can see that even with your outside enjoying things, you can keep an eye if something goes awry. So I can just bring down and see what they just said there. They're talking to Southwest. They just gave us the altimeter 2983. So let's go back inside the aircraft. 2983. Let's see what happens when I hit B. There you go.
SkyWest 59006 descent and maintain flight level 300. SkyWest 4915 descent.
So I don't know if they're going to give us the actual altitude we need to be at for the RNAV, but let's just go control 1 here and click flight plan, and we can see that the proper altitudes have been entered here for us. So at this waypoint I need to be still at 4,000, then I have to descend to 2,500. Now when do you start descending? That's another nice thing about little nav map. If I click on this elevation profile, I can see top of descent is right here. So just after we get to this waypoint, I need to start descending. And I need to get to 2,500 feet. Now you can see when I scroll there on the profile, you can see a blue circle above on the map showing me actually where I am. So there's our aircraft right there, and it's at 4,000 feet. So we just flew by Leavenworth, that little town we just flew over. Alright, let's downsize this. And make it a little bit smaller. And click on here. Whenever I click on the Microsoft Flight Sim window, this will disappear because the mouse can only work with this and the keyboard or this. So as soon as you click there, it shuts that down. Alright, let's have a look outside. And it looks like we're heading into some stormy weather. What's that road right there?
Southwest 5901 descent and maintain flight level 270.
Yeah, it looks like it could be SR 237 right there. Nice looking highway. 2-lane or... Okay, here we go. So you can see we can't see very much. So you really got to rely on your instruments. Watch your speed, the altitude. And you can see altitudes on now. It's holding at 4,000. There's the waypoint we're heading to. There's our bearing. There's our distance to it. Our estimated time is 2 minutes. We got some rain coming down. And there's our ground speed. And we're tracking 285 magnetic north. Oh boy, we got some nasty weather here. Yeah, now we can't even see the ground. Well, let's just see if this RNAV's going to work. Okay, so I'm just going to back this off a bit. Okay, so let's just drag this. Okay, we're coming up to this waypoint, and we'll head to this one and around. So, at this waypoint right here, we have to be at 2,500 feet. So let's just make sure we do that. So in order to get ready, I'm going to set the altitude right now. So planning ahead. Now when I turn this, it won't descend until I hit vertical speed. So 2,500. I have to hit vertical speed and then down. So let's have a look at that again. Okay, so we're doing pretty good here. So we right about here is when we have to start descending. Okay. Yeah. 2,500 feet. Yeah, they want us at 2,500 feet there and here as well.
Korean Air 35, heavy climb and maintain flight level 370.
And let's just see. What's the elevation of the airport? We have to be at 1,100 at that waypoint. But that's because we'll probably have picked up the glide path, which will start taking us down. And the runway is at 472 feet. So, for now we're okay. Air traffic control, I don't know if they'll tell us to descend to that or Let's have a look at, see how bad our weather is here. See if we get any lightning strikes.
Korean Air 35, heading climb and maintain flight level 370. Nasair 616, you are 40 miles east. Maintain present heading and altitude, expect RNAV runway 22 approach via hull in transition.
So we got RNAV runway 22.
Maintain present heading and altitude. Expect RNAV runway 22 approach via hull in transition. Cleared to hull in Nasair 616.
So if you want to bring that flight plan up again, you just hit that.
Southwest 59er, 1 descend and maintain
So
flight
it was
level
runway
270.
22.
Air Shuttle 3235, descend and maintain flight level 240. SkyWest 49er, 1
So we got a little ways to go here yet.
Descend and maintain flight level 240. Air Shuttle
Some real nasty looking weather. I'm going to bet we're not going to be able to see a darn thing. The nice thing about this Garmin system is you can see your terrain, and we'll actually be able to see the airport and the runway in this screen, even though outside we might not be able to see anything.
Korean Air 35, heading climb and maintain flight level 370. Descend and maintain flight level 400 Southwest 3066.
I'm going to try and land at around 210 knots in that area. I just don't want to get below 100 and not more than 120, somewhere in there. So I can zoom in a bit on this one now.
SkyWest 49er 15 climb and maintain flight level 300.
So I'm going to start descending. Let's just have a look here. A little nav map. So this were, you know, it almost looks like this is the same altitude at Holland and GSAV. Looks like they're both the same. And then we start descending. So it looks like you can see this line goes along. And then, so this is a feather I have turned on, which is the ILS runway feather. That'll sort of give you an idea. You would pick up right there the glide path at that point. Now let's just show you how I get those to turn on. You just click any of these and it'll enter that into your, like for example, if you want to see top of climb and top of descent, which I have here, then you just turn that on. So any of these things you turn on will show up in your elevation profile. So I'm going to start descending here, and hopefully they don't get too upset with me. They don't recommend going below 2,000 feet, that red line there, so we should be okay. Okay, so I'm going to wait and see if they ask me to descend. But if I start descending, ATC could tell me to get back up again. But I'm just going to follow the recommendations here. And also what's on our system, our flight management system, and our flight plan. You can see that's what they say to go to. So here we come. So I'm going to do vertical speed down. We don't have to go too quickly, but you want to watch your airspeed when you start descending.
Nasair 616 descend and maintain 2,500 feet.
Okay, well, good for you, ATC.
Descend and maintain 2,500 feet Nasser 616.
So they're helping us pick up the glide path, which is very nice. So I'm going to start descending. And you can see what I mean about the airspeed there. So we're going to have to put our landing gear down and our flaps down once we make this turn here and get closer to the airport, and we have to have our speed down for that. So let's just take a look outside. Can't see a darn thing any which way. Yeah. Okay. Well, this plane is beautifully equipped with a very expensive Garmin system. And great advance in technology for flying from the old days. So I'm going to decrease my airspeed a little bit more because we're descending here. See, we're at 3,000 feet almost. So I'm going to check the barometric pressure again. So it didn't change. B on your keyboard will do that. That saves you from having to look at ATC and find the last transmission and what they told you it was. Yeah, these are other flights, so if you're in a busy airport, ATC does become a little bit annoying because there's so much transmission going on. You have a hard time even answering them. So we just hit 22,500 feet there. It just flashed, and now it's not on vertical, it's on hold altitude. So we are on GPS, autopilot, yaw damper, and there once again is the waypoint we're heading for. So we're going to make a turn shortly. Oh, we can see the ground here. But we might be turning into this. Let's have a look. Yes, we are. So I am going to decrease our speed just a little bit again. Well, sometimes when you're trying to decrease your airspeed, you get a little too careless and you cut your throttle back too much, and then this thing will stall. But you can see in this little window here where the stall area is when it gets into red. So right now we're in an area where we can put down the landing gear and the flaps. So you want to try and get into that white zone. So I'm going to try and hold this speed for now. So it's flying to this waypoint and then it's going to turn. Unless something goes wrong. It's showing it's still flying towards there. It should flip over now to the next waypoint. We should turn very shortly. We got a G showing up here now. That's because we got an RNAV landing set up, and that is for the glide path. So it's turning now, and the speed is good. So you see, when we get to this waypoint, we should be at 1,100 feet. I'm going to check the barometric pressure again. Didn't change. So the visibility's not too good.
Tower on 118.7 Nasser 616. Evansville Tower Nasser 616 9 miles northeast inbound RNAV runway 22 approach.
Nasser 616 Evansville Tower. Altimeter 29.83, wind 204 at tree. Cleared on a runway 22 approach.
So you don't want to get below 100. You can see the red line there. So we're okay where we're at. Also, if they ask me to go around, I'm not going to go around because we're just doing a tutorial here, and it would make it a little bit long. So I'll just ignore that. Hopefully they don't. But if there's heavy traffic and someone else on the runway or some other issue, they may ask us that. So let's say their ILS system wasn't working. This nav system is still going to work because we're being brought in by a satellite signal on GPS. So this should turn pretty soon. Should turn green. And we should start descending. So this is what we're flying into. And the other thing I want to look at is this is the RNAV page for runway 22, and you can see that this little X indicates we need to be at 2,500 feet, and then 1,100 feet here, and there's runway 22. So that gives you information on it, and you can get that. This is for Evansville. You can get that, of course, by going to SkyVector and typing in the airport code here. So that's what it should be, but just going to close that down. Well, what I can see here is we look like we are above the glide slope or the glide path here, right there. That red diamond, we should be at that elevation. So I'm going to descend more than 2,500. So I'm going to go down to 2,000 feet and vertical speed down and see what happens. See if we can descend here. See if we can bring this diamond up. And I'm going to put this approach on shortly. Okay, I'm going to go down some more. Did that shut off? I'm still down. We want to go. Okay. Now 1,100 feet is what they're saying for this one. But that should be... Okay, so I'm going to hit approach. See what happens. Landing gear and flaps down. And decrease the airspeed. Well, I'm going to try and get to 1,100 then. Take that off and put it on 1,100. Vertical speed down. Then we'll flick it on again. Barometric pressure. And we'll try this approach again. Ah, it just came on. So we were above that glide slope, so I have to watch my airspeed here. Check the barometric pressure. So we had to get to 1,100 feet. Alright, let's see what we're doing here. We're really moving pretty quick here, so I'll give it a little more flaps. See if it can slow us down a bit. And I'll take it off autopilot just before we land. I can use my joystick to do that. Okay, I'm going to take it off autopilot now. Oh, 107 is not bad for landing. Just pull up gently. And just cut back on your speed. You can put reverse thrust on as well. I don't think I'm going to need reverse thrust, but this plane does have reverse thrust.
Evansville ground, Beechcraft Alpha Sierra X-Ray Golf Sierra Kilo taxi to the gate.
Beechcraft Alpha Sierra X-Ray Golf Sierra Kilo taxi to gate 36 using taxiway Bravo Alpha Echo Foxtrot.
Taxi to gate 36 via taxiway Bravo Alpha Echo Foxtrot Beechcraft Golf Sierra Kilo.
Make sure your taxi lights are on at this stage. Try not to hit this guy if you can at all possible. Pins are giving us. Successfully connected. Okay, let's come right in here. Oh, a little more to the left, straight forward. And then we'll shut this thing down. I mean, he should put his hands down by now before we run into the building. Good. Parking brakes on. Okay, so let's take that warning off. Autopilot, obviously, was a warning. Okay, so let's shut her down. Make sure you're full idle. Parking brake's got to be on. Okay, let's go control 4 here and see if we can turn off some stuff. Avionics master. And just going to get rid of that warning again. Okay, so if you're wondering too about some of the stuff that you need to turn off, you can go back to here and before starting engine, you can look at some of the stuff that you had to do, and that battery switch, if you can't find it, like there it is. So that'll help. And that's pretty much, I think, shut things down. Got our avionics master off. Okay, so the other thing too is if you are pulling off this RNAV landing and things don't go well, you can bring up this toolbar and hit this one, and you can travel to. Now, because we finished our flight, it's not going to travel to anywhere, but you can hit escape, return, and restart your flight. Hit travel to, and say hit travel to descent or approach, but I find descent works better, and you can try it over again if some little thing goes wrong, you forget to put on the approach or whatever. So let's take a look outside. So everything's shut down, and of course with this aircraft, it's a small aircraft, you can't really get any ground services. You might be able to get power, I'm not sure, but you're not going to get catering or jetway connection or anything like that. It's basically the door would come down, the passengers would get off and go into the terminal. Alright, so thank you very much for joining me on this flight, and I hope you learned a little something about the King Air and an RNAV landing and approach using